vote, but Anthony Albanese is ahead of you as preferred Prime Minister. Is your biggest fear that while voters in some parts of the country might want to re-elect the coalition, they simply cannot stomach another 3 years of you?
The figure that I frankly was most interested in over the last 24 hours was 94,500 more full-time jobs and unemployment falling to a 48-year low of 3.9%. I mean, this is an extraordinary achievement by Australians, and particularly those businesses who've been employing those Australians. And this means that our economic plan is working because I know Australians are working. And this is the big issue at this election. This election is about who can best manage our economy and manage finances. Because if you can't manage money, then you can't deliver on issues like Medicare, on the National Disability Insurance Scheme, on aged care. If you can't manage money, as we saw yesterday from Labor, they released their costings. I know why they didn't release them for all those weeks, because it means $60 billion in more debt, $8.5 billion in higher deficits, and we know when Labor can't manage money, they always come after yours in higher taxes. Now, this will only put further pressure on inflation, further pressure on interest rates by reckless spending, which will see Australians suffer as a result of Labor's inability to manage money.
The jobless rate, unmistakably great news, but Prime Minister, I'll ask the question again. Do you worry that you personally are a huge drag on the coalition's vote?
Well, what I've done over the last 3 years is show the leadership necessary to get Australia through the worst financial, economic and health crisis we've seen in 100 years.
The voters, according to the polls,
that has
simply
required
aren't listening
strength.
to that. They hear that, but they're not buying what you're selling.
Polls don't determine elections, and neither do politicians and neither do journalists. Australians, the many quiet ones out there working hard every day to ensure that they can get through each and every day's challenges, and they're looking to plan for their future with confidence. And they can do that with a government that has been able to demonstrate its economic competence. Over the course of this campaign, we've seen that Mr Albanese just doesn't understand the economy. Yesterday, he didn't even know the borders were open. Now, this is the sort of stuff Prime Ministers need to know, and we've seen that he's not up to that job, and it's bigger than him. And what I've demonstrated over these last 3 years, not everybody's agreed with me, Michael, and not everybody likes me, but that's not the point. The point is who can manage the nation's finances to keep downward pressure on rising interest rates, downward pressure on costs of living. And what we saw yesterday from Labor was higher debt, higher deficit, which can only lead to more pressure on inflation and interest rates, and higher taxes, which is what we know Labor always do when they can't manage money. They come after yours.
We had David Spears on the show earlier, and he says he finds it absolutely extraordinary that a Liberal Prime Minister is essentially persona non grata in those seats facing strong challenges from Teal independents, including the seat held by your deputy, Josh Frydenberg. Why do you believe you are so toxic in those seats?
I have fantastic members in all of those seats, and I have great confidence in them.
Why don't you campaign alongside? Josh Frydenberg's in the battle of his political life, as he says. Why haven't you been there side by side with your deputy, helping him win his seat?
I was in Kooyong during this campaign with my deputy. I was there on Passover.
Yep.
I was there with the Jewish community in his own electorate. So to suggest I haven't been campaigning with Josh is just
But you haven't been campaigning. That was to celebrate Passover, which is understandable, but going to venues, to businesses.
It was actually meeting with the Jewish Community Centre. I was actually at a Jewish community centre with Josh, which also was a synagogue, and I've been with Josh on many occasions during the course of campaign. We've done press conferences together. So to suggest that Josh and I aren't campaigning together is just ridiculous. Josh and I have been the economic team, together with Simon Birmingham, that has ensured that we've been able to get the country when we were facing a 15% unemployment rate during the pandemic. Now we have a 3.9%. Now remember when